Kind of hard to imagine, but we are already at the third week of Advent. And this week, the theme is focused around joy. In particular, we're focusing on the expression of joy because this Sunday is the third Sunday of Advent, known as Rejoice Sunday. So let's start out our joyful rejoicing with a quote from C.S. Lewis. Joy is distinct from pleasure. It accepts the whole of life, even the bitter and hopeless parts, and is content with the mere fact of existence. So, during our sojourn through the hymns that expand on these themes of Advent, we have seen this analogy of waiting in many different forms. And the one that we're going to focus on today is the arrival of the bridegroom. This idea of comparing Christ's return to the arrival of the groom comes from one of our parables, the foolish and the wise maidens. If you're not familiar with this particular parable, in short, it's about 10 maidens who are waiting the arrival of the bridegroom. 5 of them have brought enough oil to last, 5 of them have not. The bridegroom is delayed. The 5 foolish maidens panic and say, "But we don't have enough." The 5 wise maids say, "Well, that's your problem." And when the maidens who are foolish leave to go get more oil, the bridegroom arrives and takes the 5 maidens into the party and leaves the 5 foolish maidens behind. There's a lot to get from this particular story, but for today's purpose, we're just going to talk about it as how we wait, because this is the focus of the hymn that I've chosen for today. So, Rejoice Sunday, or Gaudete Sunday, if you want to use the Latin term. And it's marked as different in our liturgy and our worship. It's marked differently by the rose colored candle in our Advent wreath. And it's also in many churches an opportunity to bring out the rose colored hangings and vestments. It's a day that's particularly focused in the midst of all the waiting and the challenges as a day to really get excited about what is to come. Now, along with rejoicing and joy, there are other themes in this particular hymn that will call to our attention. I think one of the most interesting things about it is it contains an awful lot of action verbs, verbs that will call us to movement. Now, this indicates a very different way of waiting. Waiting in this way is not just a passive sitting by and seeing what's to come or noticing what's occurring around us and not really having any control or input into it. There's a very different energy about waiting when we are waiting in ways that allow us to have activity and action. Think about how busy we keep ourselves during this time period. I think, for me at least, it comes from the idea that when I was a kid, I was over the top impatient about Christmas coming. My older sister was really good about helping me to learn how to actively but patiently wait for the arrival of Christmas. She would design different crafts and activities and came up with a countdown that we would post on the wall, all sorts of things to help me feel like I was doing something. While as a kid, I was just waiting for the day to finally get here. We don't just focus then on how slowly time seems to be passing. Instead, we focus on being prepared. One other element to notice about this hymn before I read the words to us all is that there is a strong sense of hope and expectation. So we're not just waiting, we're actively expecting what is to come. And so now, without having to wait any longer, let's take some deep breaths. Clear out our heads, clear out our hearts. Rejoice, rejoice, believers, and let your lights appear. The evening is advancing, and darker night is near. The bridegroom is arising, and soon is drawing nigh. Up, pray, watch, and wrestle. At midnight comes the cry. The watchers on the mountain proclaim the bridegroom near. Go forth as he approaches with alleluias clear. The marriage feast is waiting. The gates wide open stand. Arise, O heirs of glory. The bridegroom is at hand. You saints who hear in patience your cross and suffering bore shall live and reign forever where sorrow is no more. Around the throne of glory, the Lamb you shall behold. In triumph, lay before him your shining crown of gold. Our hope and expectation, O Jesus, now appear. Arise, O Son so longed for, above this shadowed sphere. With heart and hands uplifted, we plead, O Lord, to see the day of earth's redemption that sets your people free. Laurentius Laurenti is the original author of this hymn. Now, Laurenti was one of the best known hymn writers, and quite possibly not just the best known, but also one of the best. And he wrote within a school of thought called the Pietistic school. Now, the Pietistic Protestant movement was fairly active in Germany in the end of the 17th century, which was when this musician was most active. And it focused on people's own personal piety and the holy living of an entire Christian lifestyle. So, the focus of the movement was to bring a fullness to the lives of individuals, moving prayer and worship and active ministry from just being in the church and bringing it into the homes and bringing it into people's day-to-day lives. His hymns are founded on the Gospels that were used on Sunday mornings and also on festival days. But Laurenti's hymns were no way limited, and they are best described, I believe, in a quote from hymnary.org that says his hymns are, quote, of noble simplicity, are scriptural, fervent, and often of genuine poetic worth. They are held in high regard. From our Psalms, in particular Psalm number 5, but let all who take refuge in you rejoice. Let them ever sing for joy. Spread your protection over them, so that those who love your name may exult in you. And now, in that sense of rejoicing, I have a few hopeful questions for you. First off, how does joy and rejoicing feel to you? My second one is, where do you go in connection with that? Where do you go physically, mentally, spiritually, when you are looking for joy? And finally, since I mentioned all of those active verbs in our hymn today, what type of active verbs describe your Advent season? Are they some of the ones found in the hymn? Or are they very different? Or have you not really thought about that before? So take a few moments to make yourself a list of the active verbs that you engage in during this time of waiting. Perhaps even add a few that you would like to see become a part of your pietistic life. And now I am going to bid you goodbye, and I will hopefully see you again tomorrow when we'll have a little bit more of a conversation around joy and rejoicing. So until then, take care and God bless.